Okay, well, welcome everybody to today's board meeting. Everybody knows who I am, but I always introduce myself. Keith Gertz, Regional Director and Board Chair. I'll go around and introduce the rest of the board members and the Executive Director. To my left is Chris Hopper, the Executive Director. Going around the table, Mike McLaughlin, representing Albany County. Jessica Atney-Mahar, representing the Nature Conservancy. Town of Guilderland Supervisor, Peter Barber. Citizen Rep, John Brust. Representing Town of Guilderland, Don Sepas. Citizen Rep, Steve Rice. Representing the City of Albany, Brad Glass. Going around, representing the Town of Colony, Mike Tangler. Citizen Rep, Nancy Pearson. Citizen Rep, Harvey Alexander, and the Vice Chair from the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation.
You got it.
Elaine Volchinian.
Regional Director of the Saratoga Capital District Region of the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation.
That's a big long
That is a mouthful. Yeah, how do you fit that on your business card? It must be really small fonts. The first order of business is to consider the minutes from the March 21st board meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
I will.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Moving to the comments from the public. We don't have anyone from the public here today, so I'll assume we don't have any comments from the public. Is that a safe assumption? Moving quickly to the reports, I don't have anything to report today. Does any of the other board members wish to report anything today?
Can I just make one quick report?
Sure.
I just wanted to thank Chris and members of his team for helping Parks with an inquiry into a potential new Conger Blue butterfly restoration area. So much more information coming, but I do appreciate your help.
Happy to help.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we'll hear from Lisa Anthony with the financial report.
So it's just $200 items in the budget. There's not much here to report, but government grants and contracts is at 100% of budget, and this is directly related to it. 50 should be zero, and this is quarterly throughout the year. Lease revenue is on budget for the year, and other revenue is slightly under budget, and this is in merchandise sales and clothing. So total revenue came in at 100% of budget through the month of April. On expenses, personnel and fringe are on budget. Travel and training is at 96% of budget. Contractual is 99% of budget. 91% of budget, just a function of budget. Occupancy is at 95% of budget, and this is our utilities and the DC. Supplies and equipment are on budget, and other expenses are 97% of budget. So overall, both our revenue and expenses came in very close to budget for the month of April. Any questions on that? Okay. Moving on to the statement of net assets. Cash decreased, and this is just due to an increase in spending in April. Our conservation and land reserves remain the same. Grants receivable is $200,000, and this was money owed from DEC, and this has been paid. Accounts receivable increased slightly, and that's just due to an increase in location funds for the quarter. Inventory remained the same. Prepaid expenses are zero, and this is due to the timing of year end. You will see prepaid expenses in March. Investments, $3,000, and this is due to a positive performance in all three funds. Capital assets remain the same, and deferred outflows remain the same. This is the actuarial calculation from the On the liability side, accounts payable and accrued expenses decreased, and this is due to expenses being paid in April. from March. Deferred revenue remained the same. New York State pension liability remained the same, and the OPEB liability remained the same, and this is our other post-employment benefits. On to net assets, capital assets remain the same, reserve assets remain the same, and unreserved assets increased $93,000, giving us an increase of $93,000 due to a positive NOI of $9,000 and an increase in investments of $84,000. Any questions on that? Okay. On to investments. We had a positive performance in our reserve fund of 0.15%, and both the endowment positive performance of 2.12 and 2.13. Any questions on that? Thank you.
Lisa, would you, because we're talking about, we're going to talk about our endowment and things like that in a bit. When you're in the asset line, the investment and capital assets, is that investment line basically capital assets plus the reserve? Are these?
The investment line is these three. The investments are those three accounts, the two endowments and the reserve.
Okay.
And capital assets are capital, like our building.
Okay.
And our equipment.
Great, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Thank you, Lisa.
Welcome.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our discussion topics. The primary focus of our discussion topics is the other post-employment benefits, or OPEB. If you all recall, this was brought up at the last board meeting, and to refresh everybody's memory, OPEB pertains to health insurance benefits for retired employees of the commission. This pertains only to health insurance. It doesn't pertain to pension, for instance. That's part of the New York State retirement system. OPEB is funded right right from the commission. It's not part of the retirement system. The audit committee has been wrestling with the issue of OPEB for quite some time now, trying to figure out whether continuing to pay this benefit is sustainable for the commission. At the last board meeting, we discussed this issue, and it was decided.
Sorry about that.
Good morning. It was decided that some more time and information to review with regards to the OPEB issue, and also it was discussed that the commission was going to work with KeyBank to demonstrate how the commission was going to fund its current commitments for existing employees for OPEB. And again, I would like to reiterate what we're discussing here is OPEB for employees moving forward. This does not pertain to existing employees. This is from this day forward. So the audit committee took a hard look at all this, considered three different options. One was to leave it as is, one was to reduce the benefit, and one was to eliminate the benefit in its entirety moving forward. The audit committee came up with a recommendation that it should be eliminated. So now we would like to hear from the entire board, open this up for discussion. If anybody has any questions, concerns. Before I go further though, I just wanted to add one other thing was our attempt to estimate the cost of OPEB per employee into the future. We came up with a ballpark figure per employee, but there's so many variables that are hard to anticipate, including probably the biggest of which is the cost of health care going forward. So the ballpark estimate was $250,000 per employee for the life of their retirement, and that's a pretty big number. So that's where we're at. Now I'd like to open it up for anybody who has any questions or comments or concerns about this issue.
I think it's important to note that Chris has told us that eliminating this benefit does not put the organization in a less competitive position relative to new employees.
Right.
Okay.
That is a very important point to make. Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what standard did you use, or what?
Sure. Well, I can start with our current staff. So prior to this being discussed by the board, of course, it was discussed by the audit committee itself, and I brought it to the staff to explain it to them at a board meeting. And for those who weren't there, we had another meeting to explain it to them. And honestly, not one person besides Lisa and myself, because we've been working on it, had any idea this benefit existed. That's a start. The other point is not to sound elitist, but we're an organization that draws people because they're really passionate about the work that we do here. Conservation science, environmental education, stewardship, the work that we do it draws people that are really dedicated to that mission. And I'll use the Nature Conservancy as an example. The Nature Conservancy is an organization that's very similar to the Commission for the type of people that it draws, because people really want to get into the work of the Nature Conservancy, conservation science, policy, climate change, and it's really the same here. And that's not the same all that level of people, but they're not drawn for the benefit, they're not drawn for the salary. And other organizations like us do not provide the level of benefit that we provide. Just alone, the pension and deferred comp that's available for people, but Jessica, I was an employee for the Nature Conservancy for 17 years. The benefit package from the Commission it reflects other public agencies, it's very generous. And by eliminating this, I can't see any impact on future hires.
So you're basically saying that the benefit package is already pretty significant?
Yes.
So the elimination of this
Yeah.
would be insignificant when you're considering the whole?
Yeah.
I think in our conversations, we've been talking about the fact that it won't deter the
Quality.
acquisition of new talent to the commission in the future.
Right.
Which was one of the concerns is,
Yep.
will this cause difficulty in recruiting new talented employees? And given that the employees that we're seeking to recruit, we're competing with institutions like the Nature Conservancy or academia, by adjusting this benefit, which is a number of current employees didn't know they had, it's unlikely that making this adjustment will impact our ability to recruit talent in the future.
Right, that's accurate.
And I would add one other item. The audit committee met the other day with representatives of Key Bank to get their suggestion on the best way to pay for the liability that we do have, the $4 million plus. And so one of the answers to that was to take $500,000 out of our reserve fund and then supplement that with what would essentially be half of the money we make on our endowment going forward. But the endowment is the future of this place. So it is sobering to me to think that half of the money we hope to make on the endowment is going to pay just for the current employees. That's a big bill.
Which kind of segues to the other concern that the audit committee was wrestling with, and that is to ensure that we can uphold the commitment already made to the current employees.
Was there any dissent at the audit committee? Any disagreement?
There was the thought that, all right, so help me guys, there's two ways to go. There's two pieces to this.
Oh, the eligibility portion?
Yes, exactly.
So
Talk about that.
So there's two portions to this, and then it gets into the conversation in the audit committee. So one is eligibility. So in your board packet, you have action item A and action item B. Action item A talks to eligibility, and that's for prior service.
Yep.
So prior service, currently the way the commission is structured right now, it accepts prior service from other participating employers in the New York State and local retirement system, right? So we could have an individual that could come from the town of Colony, come to work for the commission for 2 years, be eligible for retirement, retire, and the commission would have to pay for that individual. And the committee came to the conclusion, like a number of other organizations have, that to be eligible, you have to have 10 years within the system, if you want to keep it short. The audit committee came to the point, well, you should have 10 years with the commission. So the action item A, the updated one that I handed out too, is to require a minimum of 10 years with the commission for any new hires going forward.
And so that the audit committee.
The audit committee was unanimous.
The audit committee was unanimous in that.
We did not take a vote on the elimination of OPEB going forward.
No, I think I could accurately, and you can correct me, I think the audit committee came to the conclusion that it could not continue at the level it's at.
Exactly.
So that's where you ended up with three choices, but that's what's still in your resolution.
That takes one of the three.
Takes one of the three off.
the table.
Right, so it ended up either reducing it, recognizing going forward would be a challenge, or eliminating it.
That's right.
Eliminating it.
What was the reduction, the contemplation of the reduction, what was that? Like, how much of a reduction, like, what was?
It's about 3.1 million, Lisa?
3 million and then bill on there.
Like the percentage, what are the percentage differences?
But that's on our current staff. That's
So
not
it's about
extra.
183,000 per person versus 250,000 per person.
Right.
Is that right?
And that's to continue going, to your point, Mike, it would provide post-retirement benefits, 50%.
50%.
For the individual,
That's right, that's
35% for a spouse.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the
That's
lowest.
what I was curious about. So
That's the lowest percentage that you can go to provide this.
And right now, it's 90...
90/75.
90/75.
Yeah.
And I always point this out, that is based on health cost increases of 5% a year. And for my business, we've never seen that at 5%. Every year is greater than that. So our model is conservative the wrong way, in my mind.
Right. Yeah, that's built in. That's what the actuarial analysis built in, around 5%. So that's what we used.
Was there any attempt to try to model what that would be if we allowed existing employees to kind of do it at the reduced benefit with Key Bank? You know, how much of a hit would that be on an endowment? How much of this initial investment, or was that, you know, kind of beyond the bounds? What you guys explored?
With current employees?
With, you know, what if we maintained a partial benefit for new employees?
Oh, new employees, oh, I see.
What would that liability be, and would there be some way to cover it with an investment like you're considering for the present?
We brought up the subject, but we didn't go down the road because we started then working on so many variables.
Okay.
But the recognition was that it was at the low end, $185,000 per employee, and we were already spending half of the endowment anticipated revenue from investments, right? From return on investments, we would be spending more than that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think, Lisa, you and I try to do a quick, you being the finance person, we try to do a quick analysis of this. So you have all this information that you provide to the actuarials based on our current 17 employees. So if you take all that data, which is not accurate, but yet something to work with, what would that look like at 50-35 for 17 new people? And that liability would be an additional 3 million, something like that?
And there really isn't a way to estimate new employees because you have to put in so much demographics. You have to have age, marital status, dependents,
Yeah.
age to retirement. So it's...
But can I ask a question about a notification? So going back to the idea that none of the existing, or most of the existing employees do not know of this benefit, was it ever communicated to them in any sort of...
To the policies and procedures.
It's in the policies and procedures.
That every employee reads.
When they get hired, they get
say
information on this?
Is it in a benefit packet?
Policies and procedures.
It's in the policies and procedures, which they get when they're hired.
This orientation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the whole thing.
I definitely read my
Aren't close to retirement, really.
And were those policies and procedures sort of mandated on the commission or authority, or it was something to do with the days?
So going back to, remember the transition that we made from the trust.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
on our
Oh,
own.
yeah.
So back in 2009, when we left the Nation Conservancy under that contract, we recognized, okay, we are employees of the Natural Heritage Trust, but we really need our own P&Ps. So that's when we first developed them, and the board reviewed those and approved them. And then going forward, we've continued to do that. And then when we became employer, our own entity, in January 11th. And the most recent update, we had a full evaluation by an HR attorney at a law firm. We looked at those last year. And the staff get them. I mean, the staff have to review the P&Ps every year as part of the performance evaluation process, and they have to sign up. Yes, I understand, and if I don't, I ask what to sign. But, I mean, I'll be frank, anybody who's not close to retirement, they don't think about it. And the conversation that we had with the staff, in the 2 meetings that I had, individual in each meeting brought up the point of saying, oh, is this like the change from Tier 4 to Tier 5 to Tier 6? And I said, sort of. It's basically the recognition of organizations recognizing the impact and how they can provide benefits and what level of benefits they can provide going forward. And it was communicated to them, based on the conversation of the audit committee and the board, that this wouldn't apply to current employees, but for future hires.
Anybody else has any other comments or questions?
The only other thing we've talked about too is that some of these future benefits could be considered in the future. I mean, adding to new hires, if something happened, if we did have enough, or whatever the staffing is, that just like the cost of health insurance is not a given, we may have to, in 10 years, relook at this, but that is something that we're not anticipating now, but you never know. So there was a discussion that, there could be, this could be looked at again in the future if another, the board says, this is important for us to do.
To go back.
To go back, yeah. I mean, circumstances could change.
I mean, I tend to agree. I think, again, I understand that people may not understand about their retirement benefits right now, but at some point they will.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking, as a responsible employer, should we be looking for the benefit of our employees, if we can? So one of the things I was thinking is, okay, do we just take it 1 year at a time, see where we're at? There's so many uncertainties, as you're indicating age, family, all those things come into play. So why would we necessarily take away a benefit? I mean, I'm looking at Chris. Chris, you wouldn't want to give up that benefit. I mean, so it's important to you. You know the importance of it. So I'm wondering if we should take a step back and not be so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just to be completely frank, I also recognize the fact that I'm, say, 11 years out from potential retirement. I recognize that 10 years from now, if I'm still an employee here, the commission can say, you know what, we can't even afford what we promised you. And I recognize that. I would hope that wouldn't be the case.
I mean, I
Pensions are good enough. I trust that one.
which is fortunate in New York State. Not all states have
No,
plans of
no, you're right.
as solid
Absolutely.
as New York State's. But I mean, I think everybody understands the importance of the benefit. It just really comes down to being able to sustain. It's a big cost for. I think it's my opinion that it's just not sustainable, at least right now. If things were to change, like, and, where things State system for into the retirement system. Then in the 90s, Target was such a bull market, was doing so well that they actually stopped contributing that. That was a give back. So there's nothing to say that we can't suggest that can be sustained.
It's swing back to 3%. Now we have tiers.
Right.
Because
Now we have a tier set.
I think there's the benefits and any changes and types of
There are some municipalities that had to do that, and some entities that have had to do that, that have walked back their current commitments to existing staff. You know, that's one of the things we want to make sure doesn't happen here.
Yeah, we did have to work with the pension or the health insurance contributions when they came in, because there's 7 unions and they were all doing something different. Some were paying 3%, 10. So we got to a point where we leveled them all off at 10. And new
public authority, there may be a reasonable expectation of public authorities. Employment health insurance. So there's a bit of a difference between providing for new hires, and we have no idea when the next new hire is going to be, because we went up and down the duty roster. Right? But there's a world of difference between post-employment health benefit and no post-employment health benefit.
Yeah, and, the audit committee asked me to try and find other organizations that were similar to ours, and of course, there's not really any organizations quite similar to ours, as we know.
Even though, isn't there one on Long Island?
Well, so there's an example. So you could use the Central Pine Barrens Commission. Central Pine Barrens Commission, modeled after us, they do pay post-employment benefits. They pay the service costs every year to the Suffolk County Water Authority because they're in relationship with the authority the way we used to be in a relationship with TNC. With a contract. They pay the authority a certain amount of money, and those people who work for the commission are employees of the authority.
So it's almost like, I don't know, so it's not like a consortium, but they're on their benefits.
Right, so it's not like the commission is independent the way we are, so they can't eliminate or modify their benefits because they're tied into the authority, but they're close to us. Now, Heritage Trust, who we had a relationship with for about a year and a half, they realized that they couldn't provide this benefit, so they eliminated it. For a short period of time, what they did is they created an HRA, health reimbursement account, which is like an FSA obviously for healthcare, in retirement. So based on your number of years, they came up with this where they would pay
thoughts on this issue? So I guess my next question would be, do all the board members feel like they have enough information to vote on how to proceed going forward?
Was the audit committee split to the point where you're bringing this up because the committee itself could not come to a conclusion as to what they think is best for the...
Good question.
You know, I was just about to add, this organization, for as long as I've been here, we don't do things by 5 to 4 votes, you know? And I don't think, with respect to this issue, we should wind up at 5 to 4 either. This should be a consensus that everybody believes in, or isn't passionate against, whichever way the decision goes. People, this organization is about bringing people together, and we've never done that 5 to 4. We had one maybe 10 years ago that we were going to do 5 to 4, and I think everybody looked around the table and said, okay, time out. We don't do that here, right? So let's not do that about this either. And at our audit committee, we weren't about to do that. It would be unfair to either side of the argument for us to have a vote in the audit committee and then try to taint the vote going forward to the big board, if you follow me.
I follow you, but the problem I'm having is I'm a biologist. This is sort of out of my ken. And I sort of see the committee in this particular case. I would like to know what their opinion is, because I think their opinions they have more information and more knowledge of this particular subject. The same way that, if we were talking about something like, let's say, a rare and endangered plant, and, I would expect you guys to be asking me what to do, not coming up with a consensus without asking me for what my opinion is as a committee.
Yeah, I mean, I think what John's trying to say, you're trying to respect everybody's opinion, both on the board and within the audit committee. I hope I'm not out of line saying that the majority of the audit committee believe that we should be eliminating this benefit moving forward. Is that fair to say what the audit committee came to next to?
And looking at, and then the next step was looking at how we, part of that, informing that was how you pay for that benefit that we are already committed to. And that needs to be begun too. Where do we come with the first 4 million, let alone the extra? And that was a discussion that, it was sobering when you look to see how you're going to actually try to pay for the benefits that we committed to right now. So that's another part of it. And I feel like that's one we need to address too, to at least move forward on that too. Even if there's no consensus on what you do with the rest.
Right, that's actually under C, so that's...
They're all kind of, they're all mixed together, and it's hard to separate sometimes, but...
Just to kind of put it in simple terms, it sounds to me like the existing liability for this benefit is frankly unsustainable.
Almost.
So...
Well,
You mean moving forward with new employees?
Well, no, I would say the existing commitment
To
existing people is we are at the limit or slightly beyond and might be able to catch up. So that any idea of waiting and seeing may not actually functionally work.
I can address that in this if it would be helpful. So I passed this around. This is information you've seen before, but I tried to put it together with the highlights, just to pull those numbers out. And I'll thank Lisa again for her financial help. So the first page is from the actuarial report that we ran. So the current fiscal year, the liability is about $4.5 million, right? That's highlighted here. If you look at the second page, this is similar to what we had, and it was part of your board packet, but we added another line. Lisa and I talked about this and said, let's see what this looks like cumulatively. What is the total outlay of cash per year? So if we start in 2024 for the first person eligible for retirement on this staff, and we go out 20 years to 2039, you go across, it's about $4.4 million. That's the real cost out the door over that 20-year period. And then, this ties into action item C, so this is what Key Bank came up with. Very simple money market. Cash-based, interest-bearing account, super simple, that's why I said let's keep it really simple for now. And it's assuming a 2% growth. Taking a look at taking $500,000 out of that reserve account, which is about $4.2 million right now. Taking $500,000, that's starting a new account, an OPEB account, and looking at adding 3, 4, or 5% from the interest income from the endowment, the big endowment. What does that look like? If you look at 4% and you take it down 20 years, it gets pretty close to that liability. That's for the current 17. If that's helpful. It's not there, but it's close. So that means you either take a little more out, or you add a little more. You start with maybe 550,000. You can all figure. You can assess it as you go along. And maybe it's not money market. Maybe it's in treasury bills. Make it a little more money. Something real secure. But that's something to consider down the road. But this gives you a kind of a start. If that's helpful. Is that pretty accurate, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a private, is there a private financial tool available to people to provide themselves with this benefit in the future? Like a health insurance savings pre-tax deduction thing or something?
Well, that would probably, for our staff, not individually. One of the benefits that we have as well is we have deferred comp. Well, you have deferred comp.
Right.
So you could use deferred comp. That's what a lot of people do, is they use deferred comp in different forms to help pay for their health care and retirement.
Right. So there's no specific.
You can.
I don't know what we call it.
Yeah, you could go to your financial planner and say, I need to try and figure out what I need health care and retirement for myself, my spouse, and our two children. And
folks don't offer flex spending accounts.
Yes, we do.
We do. We offer an FSA.
Yes.
So that's one, I guess, complementary benefit that isn't exactly this.
But that doesn't plan for post-employment.
That's
But not post, right, exactly.
That's just current. Does that answer your question, Lloyd? Sort of.
It does. I get what we're doing here, but the one thing that I just want to raise is that, young idealist people don't care about benefits, right? They don't. But they should. And we should, and being one of those people who didn't care for a long time and suffering financially now, it's like, we want the people that work at this kind of place and do this kind of work, we want them to inherit the earth, right? They should be the richest people in the world. So I'd like to kind of, I just want to be careful that we don't use that argument as something like, well, they don't care anyway. That's
well,
harsh.
that's not a valid argument. But I can say, being a TNC employee, I wasn't required to put money in my 401k. I did. I should have put more in when I was 24, but I had a lot of money, but I still put a little bit in.
Yeah.
When you started here, you're enrolled in a retirement system, you have a choice.
Right.
So you're forced into
Right.
it, and that's a good thing.
Right.
And a lot of nonprofits, you don't have to do that. Like, I suppose in like a private business, John, do your employees have to enroll in a retirement benefit?
No, most do, and then we match it, and then we try to bonus it after the match, as long as we have a good year. Because of good clients, we always do that.
That's
Thank you, John. But what I do, I go through from time to time, and I see who is not contributing, and then I go sit with them and say, okay, what's going on? Either you're spending too much, or I'm not paying you enough, or you're being stupid. Because you need to contribute.
Is it ever the second one?
Exactly.
Liability associated with being a private sector employee.
Because I'm
I don't
so.
think you could do that, Chris.
But you know what we do? We bring in a representative from
Yeah.
Deferred Comp every year.
Yes.
And we set up hours in a room and
Yep.
say, come and speak to this individual and ask them questions. Ask them questions about Deferred Comp. Deferred Comp now, for the state, is basically like a traditional IRA, and it's a Roth now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to get a Roth savings account, like tax. And our staff are recognizing that. I mean, we process that every payroll.
Very much so.
So, if I could kind of tell a short cautionary tale that we in the county are starting to become aware of, and I think some of the supervisors around the table will also kind of agree. We've been going down the road of setting up a healthcare consortium with some interested municipalities in the county, and in order to do that, we have to get claims data. And the rate of high-cost claims is beginning to skyrocket. And it's a good thing in the sense that medical technology and things like that allow folks to live long and treat expensive, medical conditions. But since those high instance claims are what drive these costs, especially for retirees, somebody threw out a 5% number. It is highly unlikely that that's going to be a stable number moving forward, especially as things advance, medical technology advances, which is going to inflate this number even further. And so at least from our perspective, from the public side, you can band as many people together in a one large group trying to press the liability, but I don't think you folks have that. And that's something that's on the horizon, and the evidence is beginning to mount that it's already happening, but it's going to accelerate.
Yeah, this is what I explained before, that this cash expenditure, that's based on 5%. And there's a lot of assumptions that are just in that. So the current healthcare right now is $19,200 a year for individual, and it's based on a retirement age of 62 and 5%. It's the easiest way to try and present it. But yeah, 5% may be far too high. Maybe we'll luck out and it'll be a lot lower.
2.
Yeah.
Would it be, I don't think we've ever done this, but would it help to just go around the room and do like a straw poll? Exactly, just to make sure that we're not at that 5-4 kind of decision? Would that be helpful to people? I found that.
Okay, I'll start. I would vote to eliminate the benefit movement. I just don't think it's sustainable.
I have to go next.
No. Come over to Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's my first meeting back as attorney, leaving.
You can claim whatever.
Right, I'm not of sound mind.
Exactly. You've already done the tough stuff.
Right, yeah. Let me take another sip, maybe I'll start.
Wait, being sound mind is a requirement to vote?
Right. I think you reluctantly have to.
I think it's critical we maintain this for our current employees and keep that promise. And then going forward, I think it needs to be eliminated. I don't think it's sustainable.
For reducing, not eliminating. I think there's just way too many variables at this point. I think we can look at this year by year, see where we're at. I think healthcare right now is a wild card. And who might be the next president, who might, there's too many issues out here. And I do think it's obviously an important benefit. And I think we should be very careful. I think if you were to eliminate it, the likelihood of ever coming back is pretty close to 0.
I guess it does seem a little kind of boxing in terms of the financial piece, and I guess I vote at the moment to nominate them.
And I would love to continue it, but from a financial point of view, I don't think we can. So I would eliminate.
Government's already voted.
It would be great to get 2 votes.
I would say that whatever else is done, certainly immediate action is needed with respect to action item A, termination of any consideration of prior public sector service. And I think immediate action is also necessary relative to the carve out on the endowment and the allocation of interest and dividend income going forward, so that the process of funding the existing liability can commence immediately. Other than that, I answer to the supervisor, and the supervisor not that I disagree with it.
I agree that it's important to keep the promise that was made to current employees. Just from experience and from the numbers that you have there, I don't think it's sustainable. I think the same.
I think the way that John framed it with respect to the mission of the commission, this is not necessarily being needed to fulfill that mission by attracting good employees. I think that kind of great perspective for me. We'd all like everyone to have candidates as a right, or at least I would. But that said, we're faced with difficult choices, and I think they go to
it. I agree with Don in that 1 and action items A and C should be moved ahead so that we do that part of the sustain of the current situation. And I'm hoping we can sustain the existing cost. I would love to hope that we could, maybe things will change in the future and healthcare will be more reasonably costed. And then we could look at it. Maybe we can put something in to ask that we review this every few years just to see that we're on track and that things haven't changed. But I would say we have, right now, I would say eliminate it because we can't sustain, hopefully we can sustain what we're committed to.
I can see the need for eliminating at this particular point. What bothers me is when people say, well, if we eliminate it now, it's never going to be something that would come back. I would like to have some sort of a commitment that, every 2 years, every 5 years, I don't know what a good time is, that as a group we come back and see, is it possible for us to put at least something back onto the table given the situations. I say what bothered me was people saying, well, if we eliminate it, that's it. We can never come back. I don't see that that's the case.
We have to do this every year.
Yes, we will run this analysis every year.
But I think that's something that after it's done, that as a committee, we should be looking at it with the idea of, can we try to bring at least part of this back?
Yeah, so this is the GASB requirement as part of the annual audit. So this summary, this Millman report, this will be done every year. And it can be, the audit committee will have to address it every year and review it.
Yes.
But you can also make a specific statement to that effect. I mean, there's the requirement, and then there's the law, and then there's your intent of going above and beyond. And I think it's perfectly healthy and appropriate for us as a commission to say something in the process of our adoption of whatever decision we make today, to note that in addition to the review, it is our intent to actively discuss this benefit and whether it can be reinstated in some way going forward at that time, in conjunction with the review that's required by law.
Yeah, so any action that's taken would include something along the lines of directing the audit committee on an annual basis to evaluate the analysis.
Yes, the board needs to see it.
Yes, yeah.
Well, the committee evaluates it and then brings the information to the board.
Yeah, so we can ensure that,
Yeah.
you know, in making this decision, it's reflected in the minutes or whatever resolution we're adopting at that time.
Chris, if the board takes action on items A and C today,
Yep.
is it also an absolute requirement that action be taken on B?
There's no requirement that action be taken on any of them. If you're asking my opinion, which it sounds like you are.
No, I'm not.
All right.
I don't want to put you in that spot.
Okay. The most important one, so it is in my opinion, the most important one is C, because you have this obligation that, from what I've heard from the board, you need to know how to fund it, right? So you want to start that probably as soon as possible. And the other two, I've been directed not to hire any new people until a decision was made on the first two. So I'm still under that.
But you have no need to hire anybody at this point in time.
That's correct. The only situation would be is we would lose a current employee, I would need to replace that position. And that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen before the next board meeting. Well, it might.
I'm not much of a one for kicking cans down the road.
No, I
But
understand.
just saying, it's an option.
One more question, Chris. The current split, the 90-75, is that tied to some standard with the state? Is that what?
That's the highest amount.
That's the highest.
That's the highest level of benefit that you can provide through this system, through the New York State Insurance Fund. The lowest is the
New York State
50-35.
Health Insurance.
Okay.
Yes, it's a ratio.
Oh, so that 50-35 is the lowest? Yeah, you can't go any lower than 50-35.
Yes, that comes directly from NYSHIP.
That's directly from NYSHIP.
And what do state employees get? Speaking of not knowing what
It-
They have choice, individual.
You don't know.
No.
Exactly.
Ding, ding, ding.
No, we're all in the same spot, Elaine, don't worry.
They're probably paying 75 if you're taking family.
Right, yeah, okay.
I think most state agencies are 90.
No,
They're very
75.
similar to ours.
It depends on the collective bargaining. Yeah. But they're
Okay,
typically-
so one twist on this, I don't think has been articulated yet, maybe it hasn't been committee, but, you know, the bulk of the Congress money comes from the EPF, comes from the state of New York, and certainly they are a receptive audience to the notion that we're providing the same level of benefits that the state of New York is providing. It's kind of, we're all in the same boat. So it would be an additional burden of your work to advocate for and get that money, but it could be another, you know, everybody's got to do that calculation of the cost of their FTEs and, you know, what you expect to do. So, does that make any sense? I just wanted to make, you know,
So are you suggesting that the commission could request an increase in the Environmental Protection Fund to fund this benefit?
well, you know, we're careful about how we advocate for things, right? But I mean, it would be part of the ask, that, you know, that you're.
Well, I guess the thing is I suppose EPF money could be used towards this. I don't know.
Offset other costs.
I mean, we're going to be faced, I mean, I'm just looking at the EPF as it is. We're going to have to, we're getting to the point where we are going to need an increase in the EPF to run this organization. And one thing is, outside of other benefits, salaries are going to continue to go up.
Right.
Because based on our bylaws, if we're following the MC schedule and the governor continues to make these increases annually, our salary is going to continue to go up. So our support is going to need to go up as well. that's outside of any other benefits.
I'll just chime in and say, I think that you would have a very hard case to make to ask for more money for salaries, like for benefits. So the EPF writ large is a capital fund. We just had a fight this year with the administration about offloading agency staff onto the EPF. The Pine Bush Commission is a bit unique in that it's one of only a couple where it's, the EPF is funding the work of an entire commission. Most of EPF's programs are for capital costs or grants out to do work in communities. So we're a bit of an outlier here. And I think if you went to legislators and the governor and said, oh, we'd like to have an increase so that we can pay for benefits for staff out of the EPF, you would be walking into a bit of a buzzsaw given the proposal and how it landed this year in the budget. So that's like the politics that you'd be walking into there. I think the cost of doing business writ large is going up, and the Pine Bush Commission will need an increase for all of its costs, and obviously staff is part of that. But to go and say, oh, we need the $4 million for this, or we need X for, I think that would be a very difficult thing to make. Which is why I think it's wonderful that this entity has the uniqueness of these reserves through non-state funding that can now be leveraged, activated and leveraged for this purpose long-term. I think that's an asset that other programs don't have, and it provides kind of a pressure release valve outside of the public, the state funding that can't be invested and leveraged in that way.
Also, something that wasn't mentioned is the fact that the funding for the landfill has income to drive.
Right. The landfill fund mitigation is currently budgeted about $150,000 this year.
Chris, can I ask a question that's related but somewhat different from the top discussing? So, with the economy being what it is, have you seen an increase, decrease, or maintenance of turnover in your organization?
There's been very little turnover in our organization.
So that would suggest that what you were saying about people coming here because they want to serve the because in the county we have very large numbers of vacancies that we cannot fill right now.
Yeah, we have, so if you look at the management of this organization, if you have five like directors, right, that report to me, 4 out of those 5 have been here over 20 years or more. And the last one has been here for more than 8. So there's very little turnover in this organization, despite some of the directors trying to get away. Communication director.
So you're not letting them?
No,
it's like a bronze test. Now you can't be.
Right. I mean, there's an individual coming up now in November that'll be 25. Communication director, who I just pointed to, is 23.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your ongoing tolerance.
I don't know if it's possible. Is there a different way to structure this benefit? It's one thing, I'm not saying this particular case of people retiring when they're 35 and then after working 15 years and using this benefit for their entire adult life. Can you cap it at like 10 years? The idea is going from retirement for a Medicare case, and that's where this benefit is really working for you. And that we rely on Medicare after that. Is it possible to structure it in a way that they have access to, say, 10 years of some sort of benefit, and then after that? Or is that like, it's just not something that can be done? So I'm trying to think of some partial way to help people get to the point where, certainly in the presence of Medicare, I mean, again, this is funding Medicare supplements, I'm sure, but
Medicare is primary on this report,
Yeah,
at 65.
at 65, so, but is there a way you can you cap it for a certain 8 years or 10 years, or is that just not something that can be done?
You know.
Well, this is part of the night shift requirements, right? This is-
Yes, this is a nice shift formula.
And this Millimer, the actuarial analysis is based on 62?
Average retirement age of
Average of
62. Can retire at 55.
Right.
But
So
the average.
even with that, it's only kicking in for 3 years.
And still,
then
that's the cost.
Secondary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's the assumption they built on.
Look at you, whatever.
This is really hard. My mother used to say, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary solution.
You don't think we're playing with
So I am concerned that we will never return to it. So I would be in the camp to the middle ground, yes.
Yes, no.
I don't think we're playing with a full deck. I think there are other potential options out there that, you know, we've been locked in to thinking in terms of providing an OPEB benefit to future employees that's locked into the state system. And I don't know if we're legally, ethically obligated to treat future employees in the same way that we treat existing employees.
No, as
There
an
may be
argument.
there may be a far less expensive option out there in terms of dealing with future employees that we would appropriately consider. And given the fact that there's no immediate urgency associated with this, it seems like we should, I hate to say it, Lisa and Chris, but I think maybe we should be doing a little more exploration.
Yeah, I don't know that, just to address that question, I don't know that an organization like this can add and remove benefits based on the action of the board. This organization does not have to provide the retirement system benefit that it does now. It could provide a 401k. It doesn't have to provide OPEB as it is now. It could reduce it, it could eliminate it. It has the flexibility to do any of those things. That's up to the board.
Well, is there, I guess, my concern with kicking the can further down the road is, it's just, there could be a situation where you could need to hire somebody tomorrow or the next month or 2 months from now. I would rather have, I would like to have something in place with the understanding we can continue to look at other options. We can continue to look to see if there are, we only considered 3 options at the audit committee meeting. Maybe there are other options we can consider. I don't know. But, I don't, personally, I'd rather know what we're doing now and we'll modify as we get more information. I'm not a big fan of it. It's just
And functionally speaking, if we added a benefit using the flexibility you just described, it would still necessitate the elimination of the OPEB. Well, yes, the elimination of the OPEB option, whether modified or otherwise, in replacing it with this other. Right. Yes. So it have to go away anyway, because you'd be replacing it with something that you've got in the open market, something of that nature.
Yes.
That's it.
a transition could be the reduced benefit in a transition period. Well, we could agree that for the next transition period, we're exploring these options. If we have a higher, we'll hire them at the reduced benefit for a transition period. And then if we find something else to replace that's kind of package state benefit, we can do it that way. And then, again, it's a liability, but it's for a minimal number of hires. Presumably that would happen during that transition.
I just have a question I should ask both either you or Harvey in academia. Does academia provide support for healthcare in retirement? I'm trying to think.
We now get a one-time payment, like a certain amount. It used to be, spread out over the course of a very small amount, but it's pretty inconsequential for us.
St. Rose had something similar to that, but due to fiscal problems they had, they've cut it entirely.
Okay.
They've pretty much done the same thing we're talking about.
They expect Medicare to take care of this.
So this would be something we would look into, like probably in the private sector. Because how does the private sector? I don't know. That's
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think we have to put this in the context of what our potential future employees are looking at in the job market. And unless they're looking at a state agency position, they're probably looking at benefits like a match to a 401k, and current health care. Obviously, you get health care while you're working. But I have never, ever had a job where this was even a glimmer in my eye. So, I just, to provide some context here, and it's not that it doesn't sound like a lovely benefit, but given the financial impact that this has on the commission, again, I'm very dedicated to ensuring we keep the promise that's been made to current employees. That should not change. But going forward, I absolutely don't see how this is fiscally possible with the growing cost of healthcare, and knowing that there are public healthcare systems in place to take care of people at the point that they reach a certain age in retirement. It's, there's a system there, and many of us who work in other sectors are going to be relying on that system as well. So I just want to provide that context.
What are you talking about, long-term care insurance and that kind of stuff?
And also
Medicare.
Medicare.
Oh, that.
Yeah, I mean.
Like institutional things that will probably not be long for this world, right?
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, those are bigger world issues,
Yeah,
but right
yeah.
now, that's what is
That's
there,
what-
and it's
yeah.
real, and it kicks in, and people I know are on it, and it's a thing, it's what I'm depending on. So, God forbid. I think, this is when employers and employees are looking, out at the market, we have to look at the whole market. I mean, academia doesn't have it, not-for-profit doesn't have it, private sector doesn't have it, and this organization is pretty stretched. We have a massive liability, and we're trying to figure out how to cover that, and then what to do on a going-forward basis. I'm just concerned about the volatility of healthcare costs, the fact that our projections are not even able to truly, quantify for us what that liability is going to be. And we're working so hard to stretch ourselves to make a promise to people when they may not even be seeking it or expecting it. I'm concerned about creating a liability of this size when it's a benefit a lot of people who have don't even know they have. So again, that perspective is important. We're not talking about taking away health care benefits for current employees, future employees while they're working, or current employees in retirement.
And I'm trying to give something that isn't there. I mean, you can always, you look at this yearly, if a miracle happened, the board should do something different. You can always amend something and go from there. But the thing is that when you look at things realistically and promise things that you can't afford, and you get multiplies and multiplies, it can destroy the whole organization. It's a tough situation to get out of it, if you get into it, and you're so deep that you just have no place to turn. And that's getting harder and harder and harder. And you see it all around us, and that's why, that's why some places, just can't do it anymore. But the other part of it is, again, going back to looking at the bigger picture, you look at the new tiers, they're way different than tier one. There are many of us that are still around. And so, yeah, it's really scary.
Or still working.
Yeah, that's even scarier. But, tier one, and compare that, even 2, 3, 4, compare that to 5 to 6, and how long people will be working, what they attribute. There's a reason for that. And the Medicare is there if something happens with that or something changes. It's not something we can decide, but the fact is that you would hope that if something replaces it or tweaks it somehow, something's got to be there. People have to be cared for. I don't know. I mean, if you look at it realistically, I don't know how it can be done. I don't know where the money will come from. And to make their point, and looking at what the mission is, has to be the top priority. People that come for a job, I mean, if they want to work here, they're going to work here. I agree that people coming into a field like this, knowing what the organization is, I think they're coming in expecting all kinds of benefits. It doesn't seem practical.
Your recent turnover rate would suggest exactly that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, because our turnover rate is astronomical, which is good for folks, because that means there's a ton of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
We have all the benefits we talked about, and they're passed, and now granted, we have awful pay. That's what I lost it. But, yeah, don't send that. But, I mean, he knows, and so that's, people
But
are
people
not.
don't work there for the pay.
That's right.
So Keith, I appreciate your interest in moving forward soon, not later. And I also appreciate what a lovely conversation this has been. It's a really sweet group of people grappling with a tough situation. So I'm prepared to change my opinion and vote for
Reluctantly.
Okay, so, based on the straw poll, we have a predominant consensus to move forward with at least eliminating it with the understanding that it'll be looked at annually. Not only what the GASB requirements are, but we'll go further in the audit committee level to see if anything changes. The economic landscape changes somehow where we could revisit this again. We can make that commitment, do that every year. So with that understanding, I guess should we move to the action items and then ask for motions to consider eliminating the benefit?
Start.
So, well, the action item A is regarding prior service. I think there was 100% agreement on that. So, can you get a motion for requiring or eliminating prior service in other agencies?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Action item B, are we comfortable moving forward? I mean, I don't want to jump the gun. I think that's where we're headed. I remember some reluctance on some people's minds, but I'm ready to move forward with consideration of eliminating the OPEB for future hires. Are we ready to make a motion on that? Anybody want to make any last minute comments, statements, concerns?
What was the caveat you were putting in?
The caveat is that, so annually, the audit committee will be, I mean, we already are required under GASB to take a look at our liabilities associated with this particular benefit. But we'll also look at, you know, the change in the financial landscape to see if there's any manner in which we can walk it back. You know, so it would have to show some kind of, I mean, there'd have to be some variable that comes into play that's currently not anticipated. Maybe healthcare costs somehow go down, or our accounts due to great return and great,
Phenomenal growth.
yeah, you know, great performance go up. I mean, it's, the chances of it going in that direction is slim for those reasons, because there has to be some type of dynamic change that would show us as a board we can afford moving forward with this benefit for future employees.
Keith, I think also to Don's point, if there could be somebody that could just look into what other alternatives in the private market may be available that could be to a supplementary degree, doesn't need to replace exactly, but that can do something as that stopgap between retirement and Medicare age, if there's something, some sort of product. Maybe there isn't, but if there's some sort of product out there that's...
That's a very good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
I would like to see something a little more concrete in terms of, in other words, instead of, you know, just eliminates it with, this is what's going to happen.
Okay.
I would like to see something concrete, not just a arm waving.
And then it comes back to the board.
Yeah.
Even just if it's a report. I mean, because I think it's important for us to see how we're doing regularly, to see if we're even sustaining how we're doing, that we are sustaining.
So just for clarity, so the resolution is to eliminate OPEB going forward for future hires, and the board is directing the audit committee to work with the staff to look into other options, other potential options that are similar to support healthcare and retirement. And the audit committee would report on that to the board in September or December. December is probably better. Yeah, because we got summer coming up. So by the end of the calendar, yeah, December. Does that sound good, Harvey?
If the committee thinks they can do that, yes.
Because we'll meet twice. Committee will meet twice in September and December. Lisa and I will look into it. I'll talk to some other, find out what we can find out.
Wasn't the idea that you would do this regularly, and I'm not so sure annually is necessary, but every 2 years?
Right.
Or something?
Well, in December, if we, I'm sorry.
There's two prongs, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the first prong is looking at other options outside of NYSHA.
Yeah.
The second prong is looking at our financial solvency and supporting our current commitments and how that changes every year, and which we have to do anyway under the GASB. So that piece can be done. And as far as looking at other options outside of NYSHA, I don't know an appropriate frequency in which we should do that.
So you
Chris,
start.
we could use the broker that I use.
So
we
we
can bring them in for a conversation and see if we can find that kind of product.
So if there's a report back to the board in December, then the board can direct this to happen on an annual basis, or, does that make sense?
Yeah, because,
Okay. Okay.
I think just putting in a perpetual clause is a little bit concerning.
Right, no, you want to have a
Like each
deadline,
time
and then the board
you
can
reevaluate,
evaluate
back next to
based on the report from the committee.
eliminate.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So, I don't know how to compute all that, so
So let me see if I got this, and it'll be in the minutes. So action item B is the recommendation, and I obviously am not introducing anything. So the resolution would be that the commission eliminates the OPEB benefit for all new hires and directs the audit committee as part of the annual review of GASB 75, evaluate this and report back to the board. And 2, directs the audit committee to work with the staff to look into other options that may exist for post-employment benefits outside of OPEB and report to the board outside of NISHIP. Thank you, that was just right, outside of NISHIP. And report to the board at the December review. So that would be introduced as a motion. Is that clear? So I got it. Patty, you got that too?
I think so.
We'll have it written out. Just as long as everybody's agreeing with what that's and how it exactly comes out to be.
So we need a motion on that right now.
Yep.
I'll do that. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
I want to second Elaine's comment about it being a good discussion. That's important.
So, action item C is creating a new account to fund the current OPEB liability. That was in a packet that was submitted to everybody. Is there any further discussion needed for that before we make a motion to create this account? Okay, so can I have a motion to create the new account to fund the current OPEB liability?
Wait, one question.
Okay.
The annual transfers of 3 to 5%?
Yes.
When are they determined and how are they determined?
That's what we have to determine here.
Okay.
Yes.
So you
So an annual sweep at a certain date, it could be at year end, it could be.
Okay. Does it involve further board decision, or do we just give the staff the authority to take 3 to 5% as needed?
Do we have to pick the percentage?
Yeah,
We should.
Yes, so what you were presented was 3, 4, and 5%, and you were shown that in that handout, 4%.
In 20
Just about
years,
covers it in
just
20
about
years.
equals the OPEB liability,
Yeah,
which
right.
just about equals our cash outlay.
Right.
Elaine, I think we're approving the 4%. And then if the audit committee meets and looks at how things are going, the audit committee might come back to the board and say, you know what, we got to get it up to 6%, or we could back off. One or the other.
So would you be doing this every year?
I think so.
Yeah, so really just going for 2019, 2020.
So this would be for 1920.
So the motion is, again, kind of two-pronged, right? First is to create the account itself. Second is to, set the percentage, which we'll be looking at.
Right. No, I need some clarity.
In the
So-
future, we should separate these into separate motions so that it's just clear.
But you still need a percentage of this year.
Correct,
Yes.
So you
Yeah,
create- you
the way
create-
it's written here talks about annual transfers of, but I think we have to.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
split-
pretty broad
split 'em.
authority.
You want to do it?
Right.
That's because there was no decision made prior.
I know, but we might need to amend this slightly. I mean, are we talking about the annual transfer and then we're going to come back next year and authorize next year's annual transfer? Or is this something that we're authorizing within that cap of 5% as the top and it gets budgeted and we approve the annual budget? How does that work going forward?
I think you're prior. I think you want to do 500 and the board would approve 4 now if this is what I'm hearing. And then 4% through the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
Reevaluate the next year. Is 4% appropriate? because it might not even be 5.
So that's not what this says.
Right.
Let's do two, I agree with you, let's do two motions, two resolutions.
Yeah, the first one will be,
Yes.
One to establish
I think
the
we're
fund
just getting
fund.
muddled because we're combining two.
Yes, you're right.
Sorry, I should have noticed that.
So the first one should be.
You took the hit for that.
First one should be,
I'm happy to make a motion to create an account and transfer the initial 500,000.
okay,
Like-
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You did the motion, who seconded it?
Peter.
Peter, thank you.
So, the next issue to consider is the percentage.
So my question is the $500,000 all that's needed for the current fiscal year? Does that cover the 4%?
No.
No. So we need to authorize a percent of additional
On
transfer.
top of the 500.
For the, and is it for the current, are we
When does that
authorizing, so why are we authorizing a range? Are we going to choose a percent for this current fiscal year and then revisit this next fiscal year as part of our budgeting and planning process?
I thought we were
You're
authorizing
not-
specific.
You are.
Yeah.
The way this resolution was written
Right.
was because in your board packet, you were given a range of 3%, 4%, and 5%.
No, I
It's up to-
understand.
So it's up to the board.
And we're choosing, we're talking about 4.
Yep, so you have to choose 4 now,
Okay,
so it's not a range, it's 4 now.
okay. So we should change this then.
Well,
Yeah.
We're doing it. It'd be a new
It
resolution.
is.
Right.
Yep, we are.
Sorry, I've been up way long.
And when does that transfer take place?
When we want, so that's the question. So you want to transfer it at the end?
That seems like a staff, that's a staff level decision, I think. I'm done on that, yeah, that seems like a staff level decision.
Right, 4% from endowment income annually.
With the staff do-
Or annual, like
Is it
this year?
Is it this year,
Or-
or is it we're going forward and we decide if we, yes?
Want to change, ever want to
Yes,
change it?
when does it get, when do we get
That's what I was
told
trying
to
to
change?
4% from the endowment for FY 1920.
So you're gonna need another resolution next
And then
year.
we'll look at it as part of
Yeah, I think it's part of budget approval, isn't it?
Well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, we would include that, that's
Okay,
it.
so on a going forward basis, this is tucked into our budgeting process.
Yes.
And you're leaving out the staff. Exactly. You're gonna need resolution.
Yeah.
But it's outside of the operating budget.
It's outside of the operating budget, yes. So it would just be, I'll just put a line, I'm
That
gonna
doesn't mean
read,
that we can't do it right during
Nope.
the budget process.
I'm gonna recreate
Well, it makes
the
sense to look at
financials
it.
anyway, for the budget, because there are there are non-cash expenses that do not tie directly to our operating. So our operating budget now is the funds we get in from DEC, mitigation, rent, that's our cash, and how we're gonna spend that cash. So below that, I will put, non-operating, non-cash. So for instance, depreciation, it's non-cash.
Right.
OPEB service cost of $800,000 this year, non-cash. It's not how we're spending the money that we're getting. So I'll change that for September. And
Yeah.
we'll include that underneath. So part of that will be depreciation, OPEB, investments.
Well, since we're meeting next Thursday, you'll have these draft minutes too. Right, Patty and me. So we have the two, we just need to vote on the second portion. So the 4% from the endowment income for FY 1920.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Nancy,
Aye.
okay.
Chris, what can I add?
Yeah,
It won't change our number because we're just taking it from one investment account and putting it in the other, so the net effect will be zero on our assets. We're just allocating it for one specific purpose. And I talked with our partner at Wajewski, and it will not be restricted, but it will be for that purpose. So the net effect on that will be actually zero no matter what we decide. Because it just moves it from one investment account to the other.
Right, so you're gonna see,
So
instead of 3 investments on the investment.
you'll
sheet,
just see
you'll
4, so it won't affect our budget.
Okay. How's everybody feel? We have 20 minutes left. Can we get through those other resolutions?
Keep pressing, sure.
All right, okay. So, action item D, you want me to go through these?
Yes.
Okay. Action item D is an update to our bylaws. Our legislation, as you know, was modified at the end of 2018 to allow us to hold title, to buy land. That language needs to be reflected on our bylaws as one of our powers and duties, missions, and that's the addition. That's what we're changing.
Okay. I have a motion to... Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, so then this ties into now our first potential acquisition. Within your board packet, anybody who doesn't have one of these, would you like a map? Pass it around, I don't have enough for everybody, but those of you that have the board packet. The property is 20.9 acres. It's in an area recommended for full protection. It is currently on the market with a realtor. It's 20.9 acres, full protection.
Sorry.
This is the old horse farm?
No, this is not the old horse farm. This is a different piece of property. So the request to the board is, is to allow us to acquire this property using funds from the reserve account based on an appraisal up to fair market value. The listing price right now is $75,000. The value is $94,500. The board, this authorization is just to acquire it up to fair market value. Everything else that we would do towards this, legal fees, appraisal, is part of the budget that we passed in December. We budgeted that just in case something would come along, and this is what we have, so this would be the first one.
Okay. So, I have a motion on the acquisition of this for the property.
I'll make that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Questions? Okay, great. And just kind of along those lines, I met with a realtor on Tuesday this week, and there's another piece that came up, so we might look at that next week, or next meeting in September. Multi-year contract. This is a 3-year contract for the company that manages our HVAC system controls. Because it's a multi-year contract, it requires board approval as a public authority. It's about $14,200 for 3 years. And it's a proprietary contract. They own the controls. TVS systems.
Any questions on that? Okay, so can I have a motion to consider the multi-year contract? Nancy, second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have a revised budget, the budget that we passed in December. There's some new inclusions in it. This is action item G. There's $134,000 from our appropriation from the EPF last year that we are unable to spend. Some of it in contracts, some of it a vehicle, just because of the timing of these issues. So of that $134,000, $80,000 are in contracts. $38,000 is for a truck through state contract. There's $16,000, which is other. So there's some communications and outreach things like banners and Colony and Pension Colony, Yola, some training. That's the $134,000. There's a $35,000 grant. It's a pollinator grants, regional conservation need grant. That provides for habitat work, primarily vegetative manipulation, mowing, etc. And then there's a $125,000 wildfire risk reduction grant. That's also for habitat management. That's from the Forest Service. So these are all additional funds to support our work. Any questions on D?
Okay. Can I have a motion to consider the revised budget?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any more?
And Chris, the truck, as I recall, when buying a state contract, we went from 52 to 38.
Yes, yes, so this truck, the truck that we, it's a specific truck that we need to be able to pull the skid steer, and for multiple other purposes. Two dealers that we found in the fall, they're 52 and change, state contract allows it at 38,000. That's a great, significant savings. Diesel Ford.
Color choice.
White. Comes in every color you want, as long as it's white. So action item H, you'll recall from every June, we have to adopt these documents, which then allows Lisa and I to do the Paris reporting for us for the end of the month. In June, all the documents that are required. The first one is the assessment of internal controls for fiscal year 18-19. It's the annual report on the prompt payment policy, again, from 18-19. That's basically attesting to the fact that we pay our bills on time within 30 days if they're accurate, obviously. There's the full procurement report, which is several pages long, which is why you have just a link in your document here. And then there's the annual report financial summary, which ties back into our audit. So there's those 4 documents that need board approval so we can do our report. Any questions on those? Procurement report?
Okay, so can I have a motion for the authority compliance documentation? Second? Nancy? All in favor? Aye.
Okay. So just as a quick summary under other business, so we have our regularly scheduled meeting next Thursday, the 20th. At that meeting, we won't have any resolutions. We will have our regular reports. We'll have a technical committee report. We won't have a finance report, but those financial documents will be the same. They'll be in there for your reference. Any other reports from the board or the chair. We'll have the update, the board update, which you usually get. That will be done for you. You'll have media articles. And then we'll have our annual report from Key Private Bank on our investments. So you can ask any questions. We'll have the annual audit from Majeski. And we'll have a presentation from one of our seasonal conservation science techs on our wildlife camera trapping work that we've been doing. That's how we monitor our wildlife. So it should be, I have it scheduled from 9:30 to 11:30. I have no expectation we go that long. And you know, we'll keep Mike out, we'll keep you busy. So Patty and I will have those board materials to you by the end of the day on Monday. That's okay.
Great. We have a motion to, somebody?
Sure.
Second? Steve? Okay. All in favor?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom.